let's keep our Black History theme going, and we're gonna watch a movie directed by Spike Lee, but not that movie. We're gonna watch another one. We're gonna watch Inside Man.
You're the hostage negotiator?
That's right, Detective Frazier, this is Detective Mitchell. What do you got?
I was so confused about this when I saw this like years ago, but seeing it now, there's some things I want to pick out.
This is technically a Spike Lee joint, but this isn't like a Spike Lee movie written by Spike Lee for Spike Lee. This was a movie, I think the script was just around. This was, by the way, 2006. So this is a thing that happened then. This does not happen anymore. Scripts don't just float around like this anymore. But Ron Howard at one point was attached to this film, but he backed out to shoot Cinderella Man. And I think, as usual, Denzel is fantastic. First of all, I think the cast here is killer, but it's also really funny that we have such an incredible cast. But the second lead, the co-lead, is Clive Owen. Not that he's bad, but it's interesting because in 2006, Clive Owen was like the it guy. Everyone thought, I mean, I've said it before in a previous video, it's not just that everyone thought he was Bond, he was Bond. Like, it was like a lock. Everyone, it was just like, oh yeah, who else? You know what I mean?
And then when it came out that it was Daniel Craig, it was like, what?
Yeah. And of course, Daniel Craig rocked it, was of course the best choice possible. And Clive Owen is only known as, or nowadays, he's mostly known for a guy who was almost Bond. But at this time, before he became almost Bond, his star was rising, man. And so he is the co-lead with Denzel Washington. But now when we look back at this film, it's kind of funny because it's almost not fair. His cast in this film that Clive Owen has to go up against is so good. I mean, literally, everyone in the cast now has an Oscar. Denzel has one for Training Day. Jodie Foster has one. Willem Dafoe has one for The Florida Project. Chris Plummer is an Oscar winner. Like, this cast is stacked. And Clive Owen was someone at the time who was rising. So you can like feel how very 2006 this film is, for better or for worse. But this film is a heist film, kind of. But the trick is we never know what the heist is. We don't know what is being stolen. We don't know
what the hell he wants.
They're stealing it. We don't know what his plan is. We don't know anything. All we know is this crew, dressed up as painters, has broken into a bank and held some hostages, and they seem deeply uninterested in money.
Like when I saw this film a long time ago, I was confused for the fact of why was he doing this? And then like his character, Denzel's character is coming in this very, very cocky, like I can get this done, you know. It just didn't, this film doesn't feel good to me.
Yeah, when you suggested it, I was surprised because I said Spike Lee and then you said Inside Man. And this is just not the movie that I think about or associate Spike Lee with. Mostly because this is like a genre film, which is not something Spike Lee usually does. And when I saw this movie in 2006, I remember not liking it. I remember thinking, like, what did I watch? Because the film is strangely unsatisfying. And this is kind of the point of the film that is unsatisfying because, but it's also frustrating to watch because the point of the view of the film is almost exclusively through Denzel's eyes. And Denzel is a police detective who we don't know if he's even crooked or not. He's under investigation when the movie starts. But the lead investigator, he's like on vacation or busy or something. He can't handle this. So Denzel has to do it, right? It's like the second team guy. And it's like, dang, can this guy do this? Is he dirty? What is going on?
But he feels like he can do it. He's like, I can do this.
And since Denzel does not know what the heist is about, we don't know, right? So there's a point in the film where the heist is over. And it kind of feels like the movie should end here.
It does.
But it keeps going. And it has to keep going because when the heist is over, no one gets arrested. No money has been stolen. Everything seems to be A-okay and in its spot. And we don't know what we watched. So the movie has to back up and explain to you what you watched, which is a very strange structure. Also, the fact that the last segment of the film is trying to explain the first segment means you can cut out and not watch the first segment, right? It means you can just get rid of it and just watch that last segment because that
slows and bogs down everything that happens. I mean,
yeah, because that's all the information.
It has to back up and just explain it, but it like doesn't do it in like an interesting way. Jodie Foster comes in here. She's a person who can like get things done, you know,
Fixer.
and she's a fixer. And she is hired by Christopher Plummer's character because he's the guy who owns the bank. And Denzel's character, he don't trust her. He's like, oh, you're not telling me everything. You don't tell me the truth.
Well, he's curious as to why he has to speak to her.
Exactly.
He's like, what? But the freaking mayor is like, talk to her. She can help you. And he's like, okay, what can you help me with exactly? And again, this kind of mystery is kind of the film because Christopher Plummer has a spotted history that he wants to keep on the low. And there is some proof hidden in this bank that could potentially expose him to this. And he's sent in Jodie Foster to try and protect a certain asset that he's hidden inside his own bank.
Right. And this asset, right? Clive Owen knows about this asset, and then he basically kind of uses as leverage. But the thing is here, like, is he supposed to be the hero of this story?
He actually bizarrely is the hero of the story.
Yeah.
But you don't know that until I'm talking about the last freaking frame. Okay, like you're like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. But before that, you're just kind of like, huh? You know? But to the film's credit, Denzel is also like, you know, and so you're following Denzel around trying to figure out what was the movie we just watched. I thought the movie kind of assumed that you knew certain things about what happened during World War II and what happened to Jewish people's, not just what happened to Jewish people, but also happened to their property that they left behind after they got sent off to the concentration camps. And some people don't know that story, right? And the movie doesn't explain it. It just kind of hints at it. And I think it's interesting, but the way the movie tells it, kind of like what you're saying, I didn't think it was particularly compelling.
As I said before, some of the jokes in here, they had some weird jokes in here that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Didn't land at all. There was a lot of walking in this film. I mean, like walking. I'm telling you, like, they were walking from the truck. They were walking from the truck to the bank, from the bank to the truck, going back and forth, talking and stuff like that.
To the diner.
And talking to the diner. And there's all, within this walking, they're playing this jazzy, like, stuff, like, to tell.
Right. Like it was supposed to be a film noir or something. And Denzel's got, like, a fedora on. Like, you expect him to be like, it was a cold day in December.
Exactly.
You know, that's just kind of what you expect.
That's what I felt.
But that's not what's happening in the film.
No.
So again, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think Spike Lee's trying to flip your expectations about the genre. Fit. But I just didn't think it was entertaining. But when Clive Owen and his crew break into the bank, everyone has on like a painter's outfit, and their faces are covered. They got on a hat. All you can generally tell is that they appear to be white, and you can see there's at least one woman there, at least as far as we know, right? Because that's another thing. There are people who are involved in the heist who are pretending to be just customers at the bank, but we don't realize that until later. And then once they get in there, they corral everybody into like the bottom of the bank, and they have everyone wear the same thing. They have everyone strip and wear the exact same thing. That way, it's impossible to tell the robbers from the hostages.
Now that was smart.
Yeah,
when I saw that, I was like, okay, now you're getting somewhere with that, because he is a very strategic person. Clive Owen is a person who has planned out every single aspect, and he is a person who is, far beyond the police and the FBI.
Right.
And
also, I was like, how does he know the kind of information that he does? Like when Denzel was like, "Oh, you don't want me to get the hard boys to come in here, bust through the window with the tear gas," and Clive Owen was like, "Well, you can't because I haven't hurt anybody. That's not part of your protocol." So I was like, "Oh, is he a cop or something? Like, how does he know the protocol this way? Like, you can't even really bluff at him because he knows your rules." But the movie doesn't explain any of this,
any of his background, or nothing like that.
And we'll get into the big twist here, but I want to also note the movie doesn't ever explicitly say whether or not Clive Owen is Jewish, which I think it would be interesting to know, since what he's doing is he seems to be. We'll get into the twist, but I feel like that's very important because I don't understand exactly why he did what he did. At the end of the film, I think I understand what he did, but I'm not 100% sure on the why. Maybe it's just because it was the right thing to do. I don't know. The robbers not only swap clothes with the hostages, they also pretend to be hostages every once in a while, since everybody's wearing the same outfit, and you can't see, you can just see like, just their eyes like this, and which makes you, the audience, try and figure out which one of these hostages are not hostages, right? Mm-hmm. And the movie will flash forward in time to interview hostages, and you're like, are they telling the truth?
With them interrogating them, I felt like it was edited weird, man. It's like, why are you gonna give me information in the middle of like a scene where something is supposed to be intense, and you're gonna cut it and go straight to them just talking? And they're like, okay.
It like kind of kills the momentum, right?
Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing? I didn't feel it. Now, he's done stuff like this in other films, like the Five Bloods. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Where he would go and do time jumps and stuff like that, but it felt more natural and fluid because of the genre that the film that it's in. With the heist film, you have to stay on point. Okay, the big reveal supposed to happen until the end of any heist film.
Again, this film does not have a heist structure at all. Just like we said last week, usually a heist film says, this is what's going to happen. And then with that is not what happens, right? Obviously things mess up, and that's where the drama comes in. But the film very cleverly hides its hand, and it's like, we're not going to tell you what's going to happen. You just kind of have to figure it out, And again, that's interesting. So it's much more of a mystery with like the veneer of like a heist film, but it's much more of a mystery. It's like, what is this guy doing? So I feel like I've talked around what he's doing for a long time, and I don't know how to move forward without actually talking about the big twist here. So we're going to talk about it. It turns out Clive Owen's character has no interest in money. There's a very clever scene that I like a lot where Clive Owen he's got the vault open. It's wide open. And he picks up a big stack of money and he just sits down on it like it's a stool,
And talks to the kid.
Yeah, and talks to the kid about video games, So he's got no interest.
By the way, that video game was wild.
Oh yeah, of course. And we'll get to that in a second. But he's got no interest in the money. And it's very clear from the get-go because he walks right past the vault and straight to the safety deposit boxes. He gets right to the one that he wants to open. He opens it up and he pulls out some files. And of course, it's very obvious where the movie kind of doles this information out. It turns out Christopher Plummer, the man who owns the bank, worked with the Nazis when he was a young man, and that's how he got rich. But more specifically, it would seem like he helped the Nazis buy and sell the property that got left behind by the Jewish people who went to concentration camps, which was a real thing where the Jewish people, they had jewels and all kind of items, and it's like, well, where'd the Nazis put it? And even to this day, a lot of that stuff is just lost. Like we don't really know where it is. It's actually like a humongous loss of property and value. In that safety deposit box, he has some papers with of course a swastika on it, and then he's got some diamonds that presumably are from someone who died in the concentration camps, and he's got a ring, again presumably from someone who died in the concentration camps. And Clive Owen is only interested in that stuff. And he says, I'm going to use these documents with the swastika on it as, my backup. If you try to mess with me, all this is coming out, which is, again, very funny because, yeah, that would be very damning in 2006. But I think he could probably run for president in 2023. So the way the world has changed.
Oh, my gosh,
it is insane. That wouldn't be a thing today. I think people like it, which is just the shame.
Do it like, woo! Yeah, man, he tricked everybody. He tricked me too.
He's a financial genius. That's what people would say. At the very end of the film, when Clive Owen leaves the bank, we get the big reveal of who exactly were the hostages versus who were the robbers. And we see very specifically a man who is wearing a yarmulke. I assume that this might be his family's property that they're reclaiming from this guy.
Because he said, like, where's the ring?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, okay, so I see why he's here. So why is Clive Owen here? Is he related, or is he just like a vigilante type? He just wants to do the right thing, or we don't ever get this answer, right? And then he leaves the ring with Denzel, and then he drops a diamond in there. Doesn't that kind of water down the theme of like reclaiming this stuff? Because that's not Denzel's either. So
he was just like, I want to give you this so you can like solve the crime,
right? And of course, Denzel,
that I'm a part of.
One of Denzel's issues, right? One of Denzel's issues was that he was thinking about proposing to his girlfriend, but he didn't have the diamond. He's like, oh, you know how much diamonds are, and now he's got one. But again, I feel like that kind of waters down the whole theme.
Sure does.
That's not his, right? Very specifically, it's someone who died in I wouldn't even want that. You know what I'm saying? I'd be like, yo, this needs to go to the family. This is not mine. Spike Lee usually has some sort of a social commentary in his films, but we don't get that until so late into the film. And by then, you're either into the film or you are snoring.
Or you are checked out.
And I get why Clive Owen's character would do this. The movie would send you on these, and they even call it out in the film, wild goose chases, right? They're like, oh, what's this? There's someone speaking Albanian. Oh, well, we gotta find an Albanian interpreter, blah, 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 blah. And it turns out that's dead end, right?
Dead end.
And while that makes sense and that's realistic in the real world, that is frustrating to watch. It's like, oh, so that whole sequence, 30 minutes, had nothing to do with nothing. Like, that whole thing with the Albanian stuff was just a time waster, both for the cops within the movie, but for me watching it
as the audience member. What?
Yeah, I'm like, huh? I've heard people describe this as a Spike Lee film for people who don't like Spike Lee. If you're going to dip your toe into Spike Lee, this is not where I would start. I'd actually start with 25th Hour. I think that's much more interesting. But of course, I think his best film is Do the Right Thing. And so I would suggest that. But that is a challenging film. Even today, people are still debating on what even the title means, right? And there is a debate to be had. And I think that's really interesting. Here, there's no real debate. It just doesn't feel good. Like, all the pieces are there.
It just don't feel good.
Yeah, you don't. You're once the film ends, you're not like, yeah, or oh no. You're just like, oh.
Huh? But there was little nuggets of things in here where he would try to shine a light on, like the guy that with the turban, and he was like, they think I'm a terrorist and stuff like that.
Right.
You know.
So are they trying to say that Americans can't see beyond their own nose, and they just see all they see is the turban, and they have a reaction? And the police, they're very casually throwing around racial slurs. And so, like, okay, are they trying to say something about that? And then the little kid, he's got a video game that's just outrageously violent. And you're like, okay, they trying to say something about that. But that's just like 100 different things. It's all kind of scatterbrained, it feels like, right? I also think the movie was trying to talk about like power and like where does power come from and what you can do with it. Because, like I said, Denzel's under investigation for stealing some money. So, and we never actually get an answer as to whether or not he stole it. The movie seems to be insinuating that he did not steal money. But by the end of the film, in order to keep Denzel quiet after all this shit, right?
They gave him accolades.
Christopher Plummer pays an outrageous, ungodly amount of money to speed up his career and erase the little dark spot on his ledger. And Denzel is very confused about it, but he's not stopping it. But, he's very confused about it. And I think that's interesting for Jodie Foster. While she seems to look down on Christopher Plummer for working with the Nazis, Jodie Foster is working with the guy who used to work with the Nazis.
She took that damn check. She's
exactly.
Like,
she did take it. She was like, boop, So it's like, so she's no better. So again, I feel like the movie's like it's trying to have a comment or commentary on like power and stuff like that. And again, that's interesting, but is it interesting enough to hold your attention through the film? No. We didn't talk about the elephant in the room, the freaking title of the film, Inside Man, which I think is actually a very clever title. It's like kind of a play on words.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily someone who's like double crossing someone else, although that is kind of what happened.
It's a literal thing of
there
the
is
guys
literally
on the
a
inside.
man inside the bank. Right? Like the big twist is the beginning shot of the film takes place somewhere near the middle, and Clive Owen gets bizarrely lost in the mix, and you're like, what? Where'd he go? We can't find the lead bank robber. But it turns out he was inside the damn bank the whole time. He never left, right? I've seen more interesting films about the Holocaust. I've seen more interesting heist films. I've seen more interesting Willem Dafoe films. I've seen more interesting Jodie Foster films.
Yeah.
I've seen more interesting Denzel Washington films. Shoot, I've seen more interesting Clive Owen films. So, like, again, like for me, this film, take it or leave it.
But hey, that's the way I feel about it. That's the way Devin feels about it. More importantly, how do you feel about Inside Man? Get in the comments and let us know what you thought.
You planned every inch of this thing right from the start. You got everybody marching to your beat, including me, and I'm through buying it.
What are you doing? Come on, this ain't no bank robbery.
Inside Man.
Hey, thank you so much for clicking on this video. You are special to us, and I hope we're special to you. Okay. If you're new to seeing us, please hit that subscribe button right at the bottom. All right. And if you did like this video, please hit that thumbs up. It really does help out this channel. Or hit the thumbs down. Whichever you choose, it is your opinion. But just remember one thing, it's mostly wrong. See you in another video.